Hello? 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 Hello?
We can hear you.
Uh, I'm sorry, what do I have to do?
Could you please remain muted during the presentation and meeting?
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Utah Department of Alcoholic Beverage Services Commission meeting for July. My name is Tara Toohey. I am a commission member and I'm sitting in as chair for our new chair, Juliet Tennert, who is joining us online. Commissioner Tennert, are you there?
I'm here, Commissioner Toohey. Thank you so much for covering for me. I'm just finishing up a round of COVID and I just wanted to be cautious about not sharing that with anyone. So truly excited to be chair, but also very, very grateful to Commissioner Toohey for covering for me while I'm participating virtually.
So wanted to add my personal congratulations to Chair Tennert for being the first female DABS or DABC commission chair. And I'm really proud to be part of the commission and am here to support her and happy to chair for her first meeting to chair today. Okay, let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jeff, I think you're going to be leading us. Our first action item is commission business, and I will turn the time over to Chair Tennert for that item.
Thanks, Commissioner Toohey. I guess maybe this is the silver lining in participating virtually and not actually chairing. It's actually very much my pleasure to make a motion on this. We need to elect a new vice chair for the year. So the governor has made my appointment for the year. I would propose, or I would like to make a motion that we elect Commissioner Toohey as our vice chair.
Great, thank you. I guess, okay, thank you. Awkward. And now I guess
really pleased to do it though, and thank you for covering today, Commissioner. And I think, you know, given kind of some of our work together, that is why it's a pleasure for me to make that motion.
Thank you. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed?
I think we might need a second.
I seconded.
Oh, I didn't hear it. See, look at that. You guys are on top of things.
Sorry, I forgot one. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the motion. Appreciate that. Okay, now we're looking for approval of the minutes from the previous commission meeting from June 28th. Do I have a motion for approval? Commissioner Terrazon, can I get a second? Commissioner Orton, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5, announcements. We have 2 upcoming proposed meeting dates. The first will be Tuesday, August 30th. The next will be September 27th. So mark your calendars there. Next, we would like to notify the public that any public comment for this meeting can be submitted via email to hotline@utah.gov. And we will also take public comments at the end of this meeting as well. So moving on to item 6, we have an auditor report from our state auditor, John Dougal. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you, Commission. Great to be here. Congratulations, Juliet, not on the COVID, but on your appointment as chair. As you know, each year, we were a little disrupted with COVID, but each year we typically do an audit of different aspects of DABS. And so I have with me Bertha Liu, who will present our audit findings and our audit report. And after that, we'll take any questions you might have. So thank you so much, Bertha.
Okay, good morning, commissioners, and I'm here to report the results of the agreed upon procedures. First of all, I would like to thank the department personnel, including some of you actually, for providing such a great help in during our audit. We understand that this is hard to be audited, but you are also great to work with. Thank you. And the next slide, please. Waiting for the slides to come. And next one, please. And you are familiar with the statutory authority for us to do the audits, right? And next slide, please. Next, please. And our first finding is on tracking and adjudicating violations. The current process is cumbersome, making it difficult to consistently track all violations received. Currently, the department receives violations through email and does not have a unified system to track and manage the violations. This will increase the risk that the violations may not be properly addressed. The department is aware of this and is actually in the early stage of implementing a new system. For adjudication, the department has the responsibility to enforce the Alcoholic Beverage Control Act. But the department appears too hands-off while AG office pursues the violations. The department receive and review violations. Once confirmed, the department hands over to the AG office. Currently, the department then waits for the AG office to do its work instead of actively overseeing the entire process. Next, please. And local and law enforcement personnel need better training about reporting violations. Without proper training, violations may be reported late or not even be reported. The department staff is aware of this also and plans to do more education. Next slide, please. In our review, the department took an average of 11 days to issue a notice of agency action. According to data, one violation was received every 1.7 days. We believe with improved process and system, this could be reduced to less than 5 business days. Next, please. So we recommend the department strengthen oversight, monitoring, and enforcement of the violations, improve process and systems for violation intake and workflow. Next, please. And next. Our second finding is on inventory discrepancies. In our review, 8 package agencies experienced negative inventory balances. As an example, the system may show a package agency has -2 cases of products, which should not be the case. And this typically indicates some errors in the system or some sort. Also, the package agencies had difficulties resolving inventory accounting issues. In our review, some package agencies describe problems in contacting the department staff to resolve issues such as orders were not correctly input on the system. Inventory type listed on the system was incorrect. Automatic ordering posed problems for the stores as well. For example, seasonal products were not ordered enough during season or were ordered too much outside season based on managers' expectation. Audits on the package agencies were not conducted at frequency required by Rule 82. The department is required to do audits twice a year, but the department did one during the year of 2022. Next slide, please. So we recommend the department investigate and resolve causes of negative inventory balances, improve training and technical support. Next, please. And continue to improve automatic ordering, to reevaluate frequency of PA audits or perform audits according to Rule 82. Based on risk, an annual package agency audit may be adequate. Next slide, please. And next. So our third finding is that the handling fees not adequately covered handling expenses. The handling expenses was calculated at $3.02 per case. Handling fee is currently set at $1.35 per case. And the department is also aware of this. And starting in fiscal year 2022, they have a plan to incrementally increase the fee so that to catch up the expenses. Further, many capital costs are not included in the handling fee, such as costs associated with the stores. Next slide, please. So we recommend the department to set handling fee to completely cover handling expenses and capital costs. Next slide, please. Next, please. Our fourth finding is a review of the Parents Empowered campaign. The stated goal of the campaign is to have every Utah child reach the age of 21 alcohol-free. Based on some CDC data, during the period of the campaign, the rate of underage drinking has declined in Utah. But nationwide, those rates were also declined. There may be many factors causing the change in behavior, but we were unable to conclude the campaign drove the change in the Utah. Next slide, please. Therefore, we believe that it is important for the department to identify and measure key parameters to drive the campaign to accomplish its stated goal. This concludes our report. So are there any questions that we may address?
Thank you. First, I'll go to my fellow commissioners to see if there are any questions or comments for the auditor's office. Yes.
I have a question, and that is, you've outlined these concerns that you have, which I think are excellent. The department has responded to those concerns.
Yes.
Are you comfortable with the answers, or could we do more?
I'm going to say we're comfortable with the answers. It's one of those dynamics. We understand there's one reluctance whenever there's a finding. We come from the perspective of this is the opportunity to identify opportunities for improvement. And so we appreciate the focus on the department in wanting to continue to make improvements. I know A few years ago, there was maybe a period in which the department was kind of, I would describe, fatigued and stuff like that. So we're seeing a new interest in saying, okay, how can we continue to improve the service aspect of the operations here at DABS?
Thank you.
And we also welcome at the vice chair's discretion, the department responding as well to our audit right now, if they'd like.
Sure. Any more commissioner comments? Yes.
Auditor Dugal, I want to thank you for the items that you did pick, and I talked quite a bit to Ms. Liu during the process. I think one of the things we need to recognize is we're not done. And what you do is really very important because you're the outside eyes that we desperately need. We have so many things we still need to work on. I would point out, as you noticed, and I talked to Ms. Liu about this with the package agencies, we're just starting to get our arms around some of it. We had an all-day meeting with the package agency applicants, and that really opened our eyes to a lot of things. And we've been talking about things like actually making field trips during the year to go out and actually see their operations. When I went to Google Earth and took pictures of some of these package agencies for our meeting, it really was eye-opening to see where they're operating, what they're operating with. So we will, I think, be looking at that very seriously. So thank you again for what you've done.
Thank you.
And Chair Tenert, see your hand
Oh,
up.
I did put my hand up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Honestly, everything's already been said that I was going to say. I just really wanted to express my gratitude to Auditor Dugal, to Bertha, and to Taylor. I worked a little bit with them, and they were just really excellent. It's, the auditors has a difficult job in that they really have to jump in and, become experts really quickly on some of these things. And I was just really impressed how they were able to, address a pretty wide scope. And so we, while it's never great to have findings, it's just part of doing business, and we truly appreciate you working with us and sharing the good information. And then I'll just echo what Auditor Dugal said. I also have immense gratitude for Tiffany, Kate, and the team in that in many of these findings, you were already kind of anticipating and working towards them, and that you're just so willing to work to improve. So I just wanted to express my appreciation. Thank you.
And that's a good point. As we noted in our presentation, there were various aspects where we reviewed, but the department was already detected a problem there, was working to improve.
Director Clayson, anything you'd like to add from a department perspective?
Yes, thank you. Obviously this was in our formal response, but as you're here in person, thank you so much for the independent review and audit that you conducted. It's been said here already, but I'd love to also say that your staff did an incredible job, utmost professionals, as Commissioner Tenert pointed out, having to become experts really quickly on some of these really complicated operational issues. It's not easy, and they were really great to work with. And so thank you so much for your professionalism and for our review. I don't want to belabor our response to every finding. We do have a formal response. I think I did just want to point out in terms of finding one, as it relates to violations, better education and partnership between our law enforcement entities and our agency, because that really is an issue of public safety, which is really so important and is a priority for us in terms of our statutory mission. I did just want to highlight or point out that we agreed with the findings, and we are so happy that, as has been mentioned, there were several of these findings that we had identified. We came up with a plan to address it. We created business cases in this last budget cycle, and they've been approved. And so we're really excited now that those funds have been released to get to work on implementing those new systems. In addition to that, in terms of violations, that is so important because it's a public safety issue. It's also a customer service issue in terms of how we are interacting with our licensees who are small business owners, and they deserve to have due process. They deserve to have good customer service, even though they have received a violation. We need to make sure that we're doing that in a way that fulfills our responsibilities from a public safety role, but that is also timely. And so we have also sort of rebooted that process and dedicated a full-time employee who has some credentialing that is a paralegal, et cetera, that is really working above and beyond to improve that process. And so we're really excited about that. In terms of finding too, as it relates to package agents and inventory control, the DABS acknowledges and agrees that we must and should do better in terms of improving our communication, improving our operations directly with our package agents, and also with our stores in terms of our inventory controls there. And so we will continue to work to improve that for the betterment of those operations, because we know that it will be beneficial to our customers, right, as well. From there, with the case handling fee, as was mentioned, this was something that very early in my tenure working with our management team on, identified that this was an issue. The case handling fee had not been adjusted in almost a decade. And so we have decided to implement some metrics in terms of how we will increase that. The first incremental increase came in January. And so this is something that we're implementing. Given the economy and where things are, we thought it might be a little drastic to see a one-time increase of 224%, which would be what is needed to ultimately sort of make us whole in that respect. But again, over time, incrementally using metrics, we do look forward to implementing that and making that correction. Lastly, I just wanted to say, because Parents Empowered is such an important program that we help support with funding, and because it also helps us with our multi-pronged statutory mission of not only providing a service, right, but also making sure to prevent the overconsumption, to prevent underage drinking, that we accepted the audit recommendation there, and will continue to look at what the best metrics are to evaluate the efficacy of that program, because absolutely all of us that are involved in that program want to make sure that that program is maximized in terms of its outcomes, so that we can best serve all of the youth who we don't want to see drinking underage, and to their parents, right, or caregivers who have a part and a role in helping to bond and form those relationships with their children, or those folks or those minors in their care, so that we can have a healthy and a safe state. Again, thank you for helping identify things so that we can improve. We look forward to implementing these things, working on these improvements over the course of the next year. And then we'll look forward to another evaluation next year, where we'll do some more improvement and self-reflection on that. So again, Auditor Dougal, thank you very much. And Bertha, thank you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, financial update from Sean.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to report on the preliminary June fiscal year 2022 financials. For the month of June only, we received 47 million in alcohol retail sales revenues, an increase over last year's 43.7 million, which is a 7.7% increase. For the 12 months ended June 30, retail liquor sales totaled 556.2 million, a 38.8 million increase over last year's 517.4 million, which is a 7.5% increase year over year. Using 2018 as the base year, with 453.7 million in revenue, compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, in retail liquor sales revenue over the last 5 years equals 5.22%, which is an increase over last year's 5-year CAGR, which was 4.88%. So that's a significant increase year over year. This year's liquor profit transfer to the general fund, which is effectively the final transfer of DABS's remaining net income after the netting of expenditures against revenues is planned to be about 128 million, an increase of about 5 million over last year. Last year's transfer to the general fund was 123.7 million. These are preliminary numbers. They'll be finalized in September when state finance performs the liquor profit transfer calculation and then actually performs the transfer itself. So far for fiscal year 2022, we've transferred a combined 60.5 million to the programs of the Board of Ed's school lunch and also public safety enforcement programs, 1.75 million to the Department of Health's underage drinking prevention program, and then also approximately 2.8 million for the Parents Empowered campaign. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, thank you. That's a very thorough report. Thank you, Sean. Okay, moving next to Doug for our Parents Empowered update.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to share a brief media news clip from a local community coalition that took place just a few weeks back. And I think it's just a great example of what's going on in the local community. So if that's okay, I'll have Tom, will you play that, please?
Right now, 16 community partners are taking to the roads, coming together to spread the word about underage drinking prevention.
And news specialist Kara Bracken joins us live now. Kara, dozens of construction and public safety vehicles, they'll be out on the road today in North Davis County trying to spread this message.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to be on the roads all day, and these signs and these stickers that are on these cars, they're really spreading that message for parents especially to be able to see this and talk with their kids about preventing underage drinking. Now, research shows that those who start drinking before they are 15 years old are 4 times more likely to become addicted to alcohol during their lifetime. That said, spending a little bit of quality even time goes a long way with family. We are told parents who spend at least 10 to 15 minutes with their child every day and getting involved with what their child enjoys are less likely to drink underage. Utah data backs that up and shows parents are strong influencers with strong parental disapproval of underage drinking, marking the #1 reason kids choose not to drink. Now today, police, Davis County sheriffs, 3 cities, plumbing and heating companies, as well as painting, flooding companies, all of those different people coming together to send that same message.
Having the parents be able to talk to their children about the risk of underage drinking helps us be able to prevent that and helps them grow up with healthy minds and just be able to not have the addiction that can come with underage drinking.
Now, this was held at Morgan Pavement Industries, and they had 181 vehicles last year, covering 2 million miles plus on the roads with these signs and carrying that message and transporting that. And again, they're out on the roads today with, again, boiling down for parents to send that same message for their kids as well. For now, they're reporting live here in Clearfield. I'm Kara Bracken for KSL 5 News.
All right, message for teens, but message for parents too, which is they listen.
Kara, thank you.
Again, just another great example of how local communities are really stepping up to the plate, so to speak, and really taking the lead in helping their community to understand that underage drinking is a big concern and is very harmful for their kids. So just wanted to share that with you. One final thought, we're shooting our new TV spots next week. So at the August commission meeting, we're hopeful to have one queued up and ready to show you. So we're excited about the new creative concepts for the following year. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Let's move on to item 9. This is the appointment of our new general warehouse manager. Maybe first I'll go to Commissioner Paris, who's the chair of our operations subcommittee.
Thank you, Chair. Of necessity, we have to replace our, and by rule, the commission has to approve the applicant for this position. The department's gone through a rather extensive process. There were 32 applicants. They selected 7 to interview and narrowed it down to their top candidate. They have recommended that we approve Dustin Thompson. Dustin has 20 years of management experience and has supervised teams from 3-people teams to 75. He has a strong command of warehouse movement to include shipping, receiving, and replenishments. He also has forklift, cherry picker, and double pallet jack and stand-up pallet jack experience. Dustin has a strong understanding of inventory management systems to include inventory counts, cycle counts, and process flow. Dustin has developed skills in Excel and order tracking systems. Overall, Dustin has many years of warehouse management experience that includes contract management and conflict resolution. I think that having gone through this process, I feel they selected the best possible candidate. And I'd make an motion that we approve Dustin as our Dustin Thompson as our warehouse manager.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of this appointment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Is Dustin here?
Dustin, would you like to make any comments? Okay. Fair enough. I appreciate that.
Spoken as a true warehouse manager.
Yes, all about efficiency, and we will move on. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to discuss some proposed administrative rules. Many of these rules, you'll recall, were at the behest of legislation that was passed, and some of this is cleanup. So what we're going to do is go individually through each rule. Angela will be updating us on any of the rule, and I will ask for public comment quickly for each rule. So if you have a brief public comment for any of these rules, please be prepared to come up and introduce yourself, say your first and last name, any affiliation for the record, and we'll move through public comment pretty quickly. So Angela, I'll go to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. The first rule for consideration is R82-1-102, Controlled Group of Manufacturers. In the 2022 general session, SB 176 expanded the department's ability to examine whether a producer who was applying for a reduced markup belongs to a controlled group of manufacturers. Previously, the rule applied only if you were a controlled group of breweries. And so this rule just simply modifies the current version to expand it to controlled group of manufacturers, not just brewers.
Okay, any comments? Okay, thank you. We'll go on to item B.
The next one is R82-1-208. 32B-1-208 provides that the commission shall make rules establishing the maximum percentage of revenue from alcohol sales that a percentage lease agreement may require. The current version of this rule caps that at 20%, but we recognize in hindsight that it should be less than 20% because 20% is the level that would make the landlord an owner, if you will, one that would have to undergo a background check for purposes of the alcohol license. So I've modified 2 provisions in the rule to reduce that to 19% so that we avoid that issue.
Thank you. Any public comment on this proposed rule? Okay, moving on to item C, background checks.
Item C, this is one of 3 rules on the list that are non-substantive changes, meaning technically the department may submit those to administrative rules without commission approval. We're actually undergoing that process right now, but out of an abundance of caution, should they not be accepted for non-substantive change, we're bringing them before you to address. It's R82-2-107 background checks. It's a cleanup matter only because the current rule cites an incorrect section of the code.
Thank you. Any public comment? Okay. Item D.
R82-2-202.1 late license renewals. This is a new rule, but it will replace R82-5-202, which allowed for late renewals, but only for retail licenses. In the 2022 general session, the legislature approved a process for late license renewals for all license types. And so that is what this rule addresses.
Okay, any public comment? And just to pause here, oh, thank you, Tanner. Just to pause here for public's consumption, the commission has already reviewed each of these rules in detail and at length over a period of time. So I don't want anyone to think that we're just flying through these, but please, your comments.
Yes, Tanner Strickland Leonard. I just wanted to say regarding the late license renewals, I've had to counsel many clients who not many. It's a small issue, but for no fault of their own, having late renewals and the way that it was drafted before, it was a hard stop. And this is the kind of change that I'm really happy to see, really showing us the change a little bit from the control to the services side of things. So just wanted to voice the public support on the record for this one. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, item E.
R 82-2-306 is operational matters related to type 5 package agency sales. Again, in the 2022 general session, the legislature modified the ability of type 5 package agencies. Those are established or related to manufacturing licensees to sell alcohol on Sundays and holidays. They've always had that ability, but only if they also held a bar or a restaurant license. The change in the law negated the need for them to have a bar or restaurant license in order to operate on Sundays and holidays. And this rule simply reflects that statutory change.
Any public comment? Okay, item F.
F is R 82-2-308, consignment inventory package agencies. As was noted when the state auditor presented its audit findings, R 82-2308 sub 3 sub E sub I requires the DABS to audit consignment package agencies at least twice each fiscal year. However, the audit also noted that if inventory systems are functioning properly and providing the department insight into in-store inventory, an annual audit may be sufficient. So this rule recognizes that and reduces the required audit to once per fiscal year, but allows for additional audits if they're deemed necessary.
Great. Any public comment? Okay, moving on to item G.
G is R 82-2-309, 50 milliliter spiritus liquor and 187 milliliter wine sales. Current statute 32B-2-303 prohibits the department from purchasing and stocking spiritus liquor in containers smaller than 200 milliliters unless otherwise allowed by the. And so this is pursuant to the commission's rulemaking authority that there's an adjustment being made. This rule will expressly authorize the department to purchase and sell as small as 50 milliliter bottles of spiritus liquor and as small as 187 milliliter bottles of wine. Additionally, package agencies will have the same authority with some specific parameters that apply to each different type of package agency. And finally, public service permittees, so that would be airlines and railroads, that type of service, to purchase, store, and sell these smaller bottles with sale or service limited to the public conveyance, meaning the airline or the train that they operate.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment? Okay, moving on to item H.
H is another non-substantive change, R 82-5-102, licensing change of ownership and change of location. This rule used to refer to license transfers, but in the 2022 general session, the legislature completely revamped that whole provision, and there are no license transfers per se anymore. So the changes to this rule just recognize that new nomenclature.
Thank you. Any comment? Okay, moving on to item I.
R 82-5-202 retail license renewals. This rule is being stricken in its entirety because it's being replaced by R 82-202.1 that we already discussed.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Item J.
J is R 82-6-701 on-premise beer retailer commission approved activity. Statute, specifically 32B-6-702, grants the commission rulemaking authority to define what a commission-approved activity means related to someone who can get an on-premise beer retailer license. We call those beer recs, just for short, for clarity. So these would be not taverns, but things like golf courses, bowling alleys, that type of thing. So this proposed rule adds a variety of recreational activities for which the commission could grant a beer recreational license.
Thank you. Please.
Hello again, commissioners. So this is a change that we have been hoping to see for quite a long time. The language that's currently in there, I believe, expands the list, but I just want to say it does not go far enough. I would really like to see the inclusion of any other activity the commission deems recreational and not dangerous. Right now, the list is pretty stringent, and it excludes quite a few activities that people of all abilities would not be able to participate in. Would like to see some more activities such as museums, other items that all Utahns and our tourist friends can participate in and still be able to have this additional stream of income for businesses. I have here today someone to speak to a type of recreational activity that would perfectly fit in with this, but as the law stands now, is not able to obtain a beer recreational license, even though it's very recreational and very safe.
Thank you, Tanner. Can everybody hear me? Thank you, commissioners. Can you pull the slides up? Thank you for letting me speak before you. Also, thank you for the important work you guys do for the state of Utah. My name is Sean McCoy. I'm the COO at Immersive Gamebox, one of those new retailers, right? As stuff to buy is replaced by stuff to do. We're one of those new and exciting stuffs to do, pardon the grammar. But I think you received some materials earlier about what we do. If you wouldn't mind giving me a few minutes, I can run through 3 things real quick. Just a quick recap on that materials you received before about what we do. Some of the unique measures that we take that a lot of other retailers don't to ensure appropriate, responsible consumption of beer. And then the third thing I want to do is field any questions or ideas you guys might have. Would you mind going to the next slide? Thank you, sir. So to quickly recap the materials you received before about what we do, we are called Immersive Gamebox. We are the world's platform for immersive social experiences. We believe that technology should bring people together instead of drive them apart, which is why every single one of our games or experiences has to be at least 2 players. There's no solo work because we think things should be more social. And so the way we do that is through those game boxes. You can see that picture on the top. That's called a game box. It is the world's smartest room. I live and breathe this stuff every day, and it still blows me away, the amount of technology that they put into that one little room. But I want to bore you with all those details. What I want to talk about, though, is how exciting it is to play, how much fun it is to play for all sorts of groups and people. And so moving on to the second thing, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. One of the reasons we're requesting permission to serve beer to our customers is it helps us expand to a wider segment of customers so that more people can enjoy that social experience. In particular, corporate events in the evenings during the week often look for events that are paired with beer. And if we don't offer that beer, we sometimes aren't able to go offer them a great experience for all those people who are working from home and need that social interaction that you can't get as much these days. And so there's a few things we do. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. There's 2 measures I'd like to spend time talking about that we do that a lot of other retailers don't do. The first one is that we monitor everybody through CCTV to ensure appropriate and responsible consumption. Second thing we do is that our natural customer journey doesn't let anyone consume more than 2 beverages while they're on our premises, and these are very small cans. And so if I could elaborate a little bit on that customer journey, we offer them a drink when they check in, and then midway through their game or their experience, we offer them a second drink, and that's it. There's no way to get more than 2. And then the first thing you can see, that picture is a picture of a monitor. And so the staff member in our store looks at that. Each box we have is a square on that monitor. We originally installed that before we offered beverages because when our customers would get stuck in a game, you'd be able to see it on the screen and go open the door and give them a little hint to get unstuck. But now that we're offering beverages, what's great about it is it lets us observe and make sure only appropriate people over 21 are consuming, and that they're doing so in a responsible and appropriate manner. And of course, we also do all the other things that every other retailer does about checking IDs and securing it, the beverages, so no one can get to them. Happy to elaborate on those if you're interested. But then I think we're down to point 3, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, which is to field any questions or comments or ideas any of you may have.
So my question is why, what are you asking the commission for exactly? Do you feel like you don't fit into this proposed rule in some way?
Correct. Our understanding, speaking with council, the way we interpret the regulations, it's hard to put our category because it's a brand new category. We don't have competitors into a type of pre-approved recreational use. And so we would, yes, Commissioner, sorry, Commissioner Jacobson.
Go ahead.
Right now, we are asked to look at the approval of this particular regulation. And one of the things that I see in here is the end of the first sentence. It says includes the following leisure activities that do not involve the use of dangerous weapon. And it says includes. It doesn't say is limited to. And then on item I, any activities similar to the foregoing activities or similar to those specifically enumerated in 32B 6702. I don't see how this precludes you. And that's what, and the problem I see is if we start lining up let me give you the history of this. I'll call it right what it is. This comes from axe throwing, okay? And, you know, throwing knives and axes, as my friend Steve Bateman, our former commissioner, said, you know, what could go wrong here? And I think his test is very, very appropriate when we look at these things. And that's what we've been looking at is what could go wrong here, even with possibly some of these other things if they're not properly staffed and managed. So to that extent, I think the problem we get into is if we start enumerating a whole bunch of things, we really are, we're never going to fill that box. And so I don't see a problem with this. And I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel about this, but if you were to make a presentation like you've made today and you were asking to be licensed, you know, the only questions we'd be asking you are management questions probably. And also questions about, you know, how you're going to deal with a situation like if I'm sitting there with, I'm playing with Commissioner Randall, and since because of her age, I'm sitting there with a beer in my hand, and how are you going to prevent me from handing the beer to her hand? Those are the kind of questions that I think we would be asking.
And Commissioner, thank you. I agree with you completely. I would love to see it where I feel like we could come up here with any recreational activity. I have been told that that's not where we are right now, that because of the way that statute and the way that the rule is written right now, we would be limited to anything. I think the last line of the proposed rule says anything similar to the enumerated. And I don't know how I could convince any of you that a museum is similar. I think
Item A, look at item A. Look at item A virtual version of any sport or activity.
Absolutely. Sean, I am feeling really good. I'm feeling really good about his, I mean, obviously they've got this locked down. I'm speaking on behalf of the fact that I don't want to have to come back here with Sean 2.0 next year when I have a museum that wants to do this, when I have some other kind of thing that I can't think of because I'm not an entrepreneur and the law isn't quite keeping up. So that's my only concern. Sean, I'm happy with. The rest of the rule is what I'm just slightly wanting to not have to come back.
Okay, I think we have a comment from Chairwoman Tenert.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And like I can be commissioner right now with you acting as chair, vice chair to it. I do appreciate that. Thank you for calling on me. Just to clarify, I worked with staff to make sure that we were allowing for public comment during while we're looking at these rules, and this particular public comment and the presentation that went with it, I did take a look at before, and my intent of having us look at this was just to see this particular type of business as something that under the new rule as written would be accommodated. So you all, just to clarify, before we adopt this rule, I'm unsure on whether or not we would, be able to approve this business, which is a really exciting, innovative business. The rule as currently written, as we've clarified, would allow, as Tanner clarified, would allow for this business. And so just to see something like that. When we get to the point that we're talking about the approval of the rules in whole and moving things forward, I will have a motion to consider an amendment on this particular rule, but I'll sit tight until we get there.
Any comments from other commissioners or the department?
If I could maybe ask Angela to, not to put you on the spot, Angela, but to clarify a little bit about the rule as it pertains to this activity, that would be helpful.
Certainly. So the rule right now, in fact, I emailed the rule to Tom and Matt. Tom and Matt, could you, sorry to put you on the spot, put it up on the big screen? Because I have it in front of me, but it might help if everybody could see it. So right now, we're proposing that a commission approved activity would include a video arcade, or the very bottom I is an activity similar to the foregoing items. So anything listed here, you might want to zoom in a little bit in this list, or similar to anything that's specifically listed in statute. So a virtual version of any sport or activity, that's obviously virtual. I don't know what the games entail, if they're sports or otherwise, but arguably. Video arcade, I suppose it's similar to a video arcade. And then I think the catch-all provision I would probably cover it if it didn't fall under a virtual sport or activity or a video arcade.
I'm sorry, can I jump in for just a second? But I do understand what you're saying, that where it says it's similar, you could go up and say, well, if it's not similar to one of these enumerated issues, then it doesn't fall. So I do like the language that you used to say that it could fall outside of that as long as the commission approves and it is safe. Yes, so I do understand where she's saying that if it's similar, it is going to limit us. Can you repeat kind of the language that you proposed?
Any other activity the commission deems recreational and not dangerous.
Do you feel like we would need to define dangerous? This has been an ongoing issue with my other commissioners and myself.
I don't believe so, because in statute, it's already written there. And so that just is pointing back to the statutory language that precludes.
You'll have to let us know where dangerous weapon is defined.
You
can get back to us on that.
Any commission that you deem recreational, period. And then we can go back to the statutory provision that precludes you from using was it deadly weapon?
Dangerous weapon. It's defined in criminal code, but not in 32B.
Not in our purview. Okay. I would tend to agree with what you're saying and what Commissioner Terrazon has shared as well. I guess the question is, I think on the table now, we've gone through an initial review of our advisory committee. We have recommendations on these rules. I think we would like to move forward on these rules, and then this is a huge step forward, and then come back and amend. Would that be something that would be acceptable?
That would be a good step forward. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything there?
I just wanted to add one comment. I was able to participate in the advisory board meeting that took place prior to this meeting, where the advisory board was able to take a look at these rules, have really great productive conversation, air concerns. And so I did just want to, for the record, kind of make mention that there are many places, recreational businesses that currently, if they want to have an event with alcoholic beverages on their premise, they can apply for either a temporary beer permit or a single event permit. And we do approve those. I won't call anyone out in particular, but we have some climbing facilities that will do this because they want to have, like a community event. We have one entity that does a yoga and beer. And so I just want to, I guess, point out that they have the statutory ability to apply for those. Of course, if they meet all of the statutory requirements, they have all of the proper control measures in place, then those are event permits that we grant. So when there was some conversation that came up, is it safe to do X and have alcoholic beverages? I just wanted to point out that these entities could continue to apply for single event permits, for temporary beer permits. The benefit from a public safety perspective, perhaps, is that by applying to be a licensee, being approved to be a licensee, really helps to bring better control to that premise because they're receiving the education, the training, et cetera, from our compliance staff. And they get all of the benefit and support of that versus having, 4 or 5 kind of one-off events where you do have staff planning those, and they typically do a really good job. But there is some thinking that if they are an official licensee, in this case, they would be a beer rec licensee, that perhaps the scrutiny in being an applicant and being successfully awarded said license, and then having to make sure to adhere to all the laws, protocols, audit visits, et cetera, perhaps makes this safer than them not being licensed or have the ability to be licensed as a beer rec licensee, but still being able to get single event permits and temporary beer permits. So I just wanted to point that out from a public safety perspective, that I guess that point.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item K.
Thank you. Item K is R82-9-201, application requirements related to event permits. The proposed changes to this rule clarify the timelines for submitting event permit application and grants the executive director of the department more flexibility to consider late applications while still maintaining fidelity to public safety concerns.
Any comments? I'm sorry, I thought I saw someone get up in the back. Okay, let's move on to the last item.
Last but not least, another non-substantive change, R82-9-201.1, guidelines for issuing permits. It's a cleanup issue because, again, the current rule cites an incorrect statutory provision.
Any public comment? Okay, I want to applaud the DABS staff on this immense undertaking. Wanted to also recognize Senator Stevenson, who's here in the audience with us, and thank the legislature for all the important changes that they're making and giving the commission the opportunity to review and to define our part in the process. And so I think the action item here that I would be looking for is a motion to approve the proposed administrative rules, items A through L, and that will move these proposed rules forward in a process where we will notice them for public comment before taking an official vote to adopt the formal rulemaking, the rules, adopt the rules.
Yes, well, I'm asking you to vote to send them all these rules through the formal rulemaking process.
Got it. Okay, looking for that motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Tui, can I jump in really quick before we act and ask a question?
Please, yes.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. Just a clarification with staff, once we send these through rulemaking process, if we got to the point where we would like to make an additional amendment before, or any amendment before, after it goes to public comment and such, does it have to go back through the process, or can we make amendments at that kind of final time? If that makes sense what I'm asking.
My understanding is whatever public comment the commission receives, that we could then consider amending the rule in that respect, but I would have to honestly check with rule staff to see if it would then have to be open for a second comment period because you'd be making a change. My guess would be yes, it would have to stay up there longer.
Oh, okay. I actually, given that, I might make an emotion for an amendment. Commissioner Tui, I'd follow
you.
You
can make a substitute motion if you'd prefer.
That's great. Yeah. So do we have the motion on the table? Has it been seconded? Okay.
It was we didn't get to the second yet, but it was to approve the rules as proposed.
Okay. I would propose a substitute motion, and the motion would be that we incorporate the language that Tanner had suggested. Any other activity that the commission deems recreational that is not dangerous. I'll make that substitute motion. If someone seconds it, I would like to hear as part of the discussion, some staff feedback around that. And then also around not dangerous. Like, I don't know, I'm one of the commissioners that doesn't have a lot of comfort with not having a really good statutory definition of dangerous to refer to, but perhaps we could actually refer back to the statute that uses that language. So that's my substitute motion. If it gets seconded, hopefully we could have some discussion around it.
Commissioner Tenner, my understanding is that the rule in item 2 that's proposed, it says a commission approved activity for which the commission may grant an on-premise beer retailer license that is not a tavern includes the following leisure activities that do not involve the use of a dangerous weapon. So I think that would cover everything that falls under. So I think we might be able to just remove dangerous activity from your statement.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll take that as a friendly amendment to that, my substitute motion. That works.
Vicky, are you clear on that?
So my substitute motion is that we include the language that Tanner has suggested, any other activity that the commission deems recreational. And then I can discuss a little bit if it gets seconded. Like I said, I'd like to hear from staff, and then also I could discuss a little bit.
Hey, I think that's a friendly substitute motion. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
So in doing this, I appreciate kind of what Tiffany went through, where in bringing some of these activities under kind of the authority of being licensed, we can have more oversight here and actually work with them before approving a license to make sure that, you know, safety is more than adequately insured. And so this is where I'm kind of coming from being a little bit more inclusive here. And like I said, I do appreciate how Tiffany kind of outlined how we could use this as a tool to make sure that we're actually inserting some of this additional accountability. And then it would be good to hear any staff comment on this.
Just a quick question for clarity. So under 2 in the rule, commission approved activity, the long list that now goes from A through I, we would be adding J. J would say any other activity that the commission deems recreational.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I have the language right. Okay.
Yes.
And I would note, if you wanted staff input, Chair Tenner, to that statute, the statute already defines a large number of activities, including skiing. Frankly,
Wow.
I would be dangerous skiing without beer. So, I mean, the point is, there are lots of things on here that obviously, if people are not operating it appropriately, it could be dangerous. And so a lot of it does come down to, as you noted, the operational procedures in place, and also individual responsibility, frankly.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And just one clarification, Angela, I think at the end of your sentence, you said that the commission deems
recreational.
That wasn't in Juliet's sentence.
I think it was, yeah. Any other activity that the commission deems recreational. I guess we could use the term leisure activity, but.
I'm sorry, it just ended with activity. So I wanted to add that.
Yes, deems recreational. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? Are there any other comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, let's move on. So I guess just to clarify, that was a motion to approve all of the rules, including the change to item J.
That was my substitute motion. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And send them through the process. Yes. Okay, let's move on to item 11, violations. Erin.
Good morning, commissioners. 1 through 10 are complete and ready for approval, and please strike number 11.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar for violations, items 1 through 10, striking item 11? Thank you, Commissioner Orton. Second, anyone?
I ask a question. What is the violation for item 9?
Can I get a second first, and then we'll move to discussion on the items? Thanks, Commissioner Randall. The staff had a.
Number 9 is consumption of alcohol while on duty.
What,
Which item? 9.
So the settlement agreement was a 5-day suspension plus costs.
does this violation occur often?
In
Talking
general,
with respect to this licensee?
I'm
Are you talking with respect to this licensee or in general, this type of violation?
in general.
No, not really.
It seems to me like this is quite an egregious violation that really ought to be addressed or at least focused upon for 2 reasons. Number one is the nature of the violation. The second is the precedent. I'd make a recommendation that we send it back to staff for review and bring it up at the next meeting next month.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? Yes.
So is there a reason why the name Is there a reason why the name of the employee who had the infraction isn't listed like everyone else's?
I believe that the employee was not cited. Because we didn't have a citation or the name in the report.
So the employee was drinking on the job but wasn't cited?
They were just taking administrative action.
Could I make an observation?
And that is Mr. Shea, the attorney representing this licensee.
Okay.
Excuse me, we'll move to public comment when we're done with commission questions.
I'd have a question. So,
Please.
the consumption of alcohol while on duty, was that like, I know we've had cases where they were tasting the alcohol as they were making a drink. So was that something like that? Or I see on a different restaurant or bar, it says employee intoxicated while on duty, which is a different violation. So I'm just curious as to what happened while they were consuming on duty.
Yeah, can staff comment on that?
She was, the employee was walking around, drinking a beer and clearing off tables. So she was in and out of the patio to the inside the establishment.
Okay, I saw Jeff Buckner was online from the AG's office. Did you want to speak to this item, Jeff? Okay, Commissioner Parrish, he didn't want to speak. Okay.
He's in a.
Yeah, and he didn't want to further comment.
I can read the chat from Jeff Buckner. I'm actually not sure if this is maybe just we're confused about the 2 items. Just for my clarification, being virtual. Also, what establishment are we talking about?
This is item 9, world famous Woody's Tavern in Moab.
Okay, the chat that Jeff Buckner put in said Woody's was about failure to ID someone under the age of 35. It wasn't consuming while on duty. The consuming on duty was for Spitfire. So I guess I'm very confused about which one we're talking about. I will echo Commissioner Parrish's sentiment, and I think the rest of the commission sentiment that drinking while on duty is incredibly problematic. There was one that I heard about where it was an issue of someone doing a small taste for bad wine and not spitting it out. So I'm not so concerned about that sort of a thing. But drinking on duty, I'm actually very concerned about. Do any of the other attorney generals have? Can you clarify what we're talking about here? It was, okay.
I'm sorry for having to step out. It was a very important issue. But what I'm hearing is that this consent calendar summary is not correct. Is that right?
Staff is doing some additional research now. We do have the paralegal that works for the Attorney General's office, and so I think we're trying to clarify if the report is correct or not.
He just clarified in chat that it is correct. My concern is, first of all,
Why isn't he here?
I can't necessarily, because I have a small screen, I can't necessarily read chat, but there's a lot going on in chat. And I just want to make sure that we have correct information. It sounds like staff was correct.
That is correct.
It is.
And I'm still just curious why that wasn't noted on the consent calendar. Like why that, if the employee was walking around drinking while on the job, why were they not cited? I'm just confused.
I don't believe there's not a criminal charge for that. It's an administrative action. And so SBI submitted it just as an administrative action against the licensee.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for the confusion. We had some misinformation pop up on the chat from the AG's office, and staff worked to quickly clarify that. Thank you very much for being on top of this. Any other further comment on Commissioner Parrish's motion?
I'm so sorry. Is your motion to strike this from, take it off the consent calendar?
No, they go to review for staff regarding the penalties and so forth, and then we'll bring it up next month.
That would affect.
As the attorney for Woody's, would I be able to speak? I'm the attorney for Woody's.
Yes, appreciate
Before you
you.
ramrod something through.
Sir, please direct your comments to the chair. Appreciate that. And yes, you can have permission to speak. We appreciate you being here.
All right, I apologize.
Please, can you
for the
please
delay.
state your name for the record?
Yeah, it's Patrick Shea, S-H-E-A. I apologize. I've been teaching in Pakistan, and there have been some medical problems that have to be looked at, so I couldn't make the 10 o'clock meeting. The instance of the quote employee, which SBI misidentified, was someone who was off duty. She wasn't working. She wasn't getting paid. And because of the shortage of labor, particularly in Moab, number of people, customers and employees who are off duty often clean up places and dishes. So I would argue that she was not an employee in the sense that she was not being paid. She wasn't under anybody's supervision. We have suggested, or I've suggested, that they get different badges. That is, badges for people who are able to serve and therefore responsible, and those employees who work in the kitchen or who are, if you will, off duty. I just think SBI was anxious to establish a violation and did not investigate in the proper manner. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So at this point, we have a motion on the table that has been seconded to effectively strike this item, remand it back to staff for further investigation and clarification. Mr. Shea, based on your comments, it sounds like you also think there is more to figure out. I would think it would be in the best interest of this entity to just move forward, but certainly would support Commissioner Parrish's motion in this instance, especially considering the confusion. Do we have any more comment on this item before we vote?
Yes, I would like to make one further comment. I've been representing bars and restaurants before the commission for well over 25 years. The dilemma for a small business operator is if there is a misinterpretation or a bad investigation, as I would suggest there is here, their choice is to litigate, and most people don't have the money to do that. So it seems to me that we're faking looking at, quote, a serious matter when in fact it's not. And Mr. Buckner has been fully aware that this employee was not on duty and there was no drinking while on duty. But, you know, the commission will have its way.
Mr. Chair, I think the motion that I seconded actually gives me a little bit more time to investigate further and understand. Honestly, it's to understand it greater. So it does help me to understand what actually happened.
What don't you understand?
Mr. Shea, we will not have the dialogue going forward. We'll pause right here. I'm going to staff for an additional comment here before we vote.
And it was.
Yeah, this is fairly typical of public comment.
Thank you for that. Erin.
It was our position that they were drinking on the duty because they were doing employee duties. And then the employee left before the officers could get their name, and that's why it wasn't in the report. They were at a covert op and the employee had left.
Okay. Angela.
Just one additional comment. I had staffed previously before this case occurred as based on a prior matter. This issue with Sheila Page, and her interpretation of the law is if the business is open, and this business was open at the time, and an employee is in there performing any type of duty, whether it's clearing tables, mopping the floor, or whatever, they're on duty. They don't have to be behind the bar. They don't have to be seating or serving customers. So in that sense, it's an appropriate administrative action to bring forth. And however, it was resolved very favorably for the licensee with 5-day suspension and costs. It's within the violation grid. You have the authority to approve that, but it is definitely resolved in a way that is beneficial to the licensee, if you will. It's on the lower end of the violation.
Yeah, I share that sentiment, and that's why I was thinking this would be moving forward today, but I'm happy to remand it for further discussion and investigation. So unless there are any other comments from commissioners.
Also, Chair, I had
Yes.
one comment, that is that relative to Mr. Shea's comments, Jeff Buckner said it was underage drinking, ID, not the fact that addressing the issue of the drinking on the job.
And that was incorrect. Yeah, yeah. Okay, the motion was to strike item 9. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes, Commissioner Tenert seconded it. Yes. Okay, and then I will now take a motion to approve the consent calendar with items 1 through 10, striking item 9 and 11.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to agenda item 12, extended closure requests. First is Rob. Hello.
Morning, commissioners. We have Ozora. It's a full service restaurant in Salt Lake City. They've been closed since the end of last year due to some noisy neighbors. They were looking to do a change of location. They weren't able to find a place. However, they have found some people who want to purchase their place. So they're in the process of submitting a change of ownership that should be coming in August. They are asking for an extended closure to the August commission meeting to get all that paperwork in for that.
Okay, thank you. Let's vote on these all together. Item B, which is Nicole.
Good morning, commissioners. The matter in front of you is regarding the Brick Sports Grill in Murray. They are a bar license. They were approved for their license on May the 24th, 2022, and were given a 90 days closure. As a 90-day closure will end before the August commission meeting on August 30th. They are requesting a 30-day extension to work on the parking logistic with Murray City. Do you have any question for me?
Questions from, yes.
When did you say they got their license?
They got their license. It was a transfer. They got it on May 24th, 2022.
Okay.
Okay. Rob, Collab Market.
Right, Collab Market is a summer seasonal license. So they're only open beginning of May till the end of October. They have not opened at all this year. They have some large infrastructure repairs going on. If they can open before the end of October, they will, but they don't think they'll be able to open until next year. And that's why they're asking to have an extended closure to the May 2023 commission meeting.
Okay, thank you. Item D, Mike.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Reef Restaurant, located in Park City at the Deer Valley Club. They kind of operate as the club operates, so with less traffic in Park City during the spring and the autumn, they typically request a 90-day closure, which they did. They requested a closure in April. And as they were getting ready to open for the summer season, they had some unforeseen medical circumstances, which are going to keep them from opening this summer, and they would like to request an extended closure until the September commission meeting.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve all 4 extended closure requests until the designated times on the agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Orton. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we are striking item 13 and moving on to item 14, off-premise beer retailer applications. Stephanie.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have 2 off-premise beer applications. The first applicant is Maverick number 694 in Nephi. That applicant meets all statutory requirements. Applicant number 2, Holiday Oil number 72 in Roy. That application is conditional due to the business license. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve both applicants. Thank you, Commissioner Parrish. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item 15, license applications, starting with item A, change of ownership applications, 51% change of ownership. Erin.
Good morning again, Commissioners. We have 151 change of ownership of an existing entity. It's complete and meets statutory requirements. We also have 2 applicants there for the off-premise beer change of ownership. Both are complete and meet statutory requirements.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, looking for a motion to approve items 1 and off-premise 1 and 2.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. A second? Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And sorry about that, Commissioner Jacobson. I was just trying to get the full motion on the record. Okay, for the bar establishment applications, the compliance subcommittee met and would like to hear a very brief update from a few different participants. Please note that item 2, High West Distillery, is stricken at their request. So first of all, Durango, if you have any updates, and if you don't, feel free to just skip, but Durango, if you're here. Morning.
My name is Cassandra Campos. I'm the manager over at Durango Bar. I just wanted to go over that we have updated our operation. Sorry, I'm nervous. We have updated our operation manual for this year, and we have gone over all the training. And this is actually going to be used for if I'm not there one day, so that whoever is in charge for that day, as far as management, will be able to go over everything so that everything is up. And as far as like record keeping, dispensing, and everything can run smoothly. I was informed you guys got a copy of it, but I'm not sure. Yes. Okay, awesome. So yeah, that's all I wanted to.
question for you. We were told that appointments were missed with the Swazo Business Center to talk about management planning. To me, what you updated with us was a very good operations manual based on past operational challenges the bar had before the non-renewal. It might not be encompassing of all of the operation issues, but it did address the issues in detail that we had an issue with before. So tell me, basically what I saw missing from the operations manual was the management continuity. And you mentioned that it was in place so that if you were ever not there, that someone else would talk about it. But talk a little bit more about your continuity planning in terms of management.
In terms of management, we're gonna make a separate one with Swazo actually, where we're gonna have a separate, this is kind of more of like, if not really a manager on duty, but like someone that's in charge of the bar behind the bar, so that all the record keeping can actually be done correctly. And so as far as like dispensing and everything, and we are getting a new POS system that is on its way, so we can have that day end report so that daily record keeping is done. But yes, we did miss a meeting with Swazo, but hopefully we're gonna be able to get with them again so that we can get that other operations manual just specifically for our managers or whoever's the lead position that day.
And your business continuity planning,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any questions from commissioners?
I have a question for you. What is going to be your role going forward?
I am gonna be the manager of Durango Bar, and I just have a second job where it limits me of being able to be there all 2 days that we are open. But we are hoping that with getting this license that we are gonna be able to extend our hours, especially because us being like the very few Latino, establishments that are available to the community, that I'll be able to be there more than just one day from the 2 days that we're able to open.
I see Pablo's here. Could
Yes.
Pablo come up? How many days are you going to be there each weekend?
I'm hoping if we are able to extend our hours, that I'll be there 3 out of the 4.
Out of 4. Okay. I've got to admit, I feel very compelled to give you a license. I feel, and looking at what you've done and how far you've come and everything, we've been very, very stern with you about what we needed and everything. And Pablo, I hope you recognize you really need this manager. That's very, very important. But I know we've asked a lot of you folks, and we told you that if you could get your operation stuff together and everything, that we would do that. And I feel compelled, obviously, at this point in time, that I should vote to give you a license. However, I do want to make something really clear, and I may have other commissioners who agree with me. If you don't follow the operations manual and you don't operate properly and you run into trouble again, there's probably not a commissioner sitting here, and I don't know what any new commissioners would do, who won't give you a license. So you're going to have to play by the rules. I don't know how my other fellow commissioners feel about that, but I think that's one of the things that's on everybody's mind, is that we want you to succeed, but you can't stumble here. Don't serve to minors. Don't do any things you heard about here. Don't let your employees start drinking on the job or anything like that. I think it's really important you set the example for everybody else.
Mr. Hinojosa, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. I unfortunately don't share the sentiments of Commissioner Jacobson, but the reason is because I feel like you've got more to do. And I hate to say that because it feels like you've been here and you've been here and you've been here, but just waiting for a license doesn't give you a license, right? You've got to be willing to put in the work. And I've seen a ton of progress. And what I still am just missing is that management piece, the business continuity piece that I think is so important. And you guys are one argument away from you losing the best thing that you have in your business right now, because Cassandra has been amazing, and from what staff has told us, has done a ton of work to get your business in a very good place. And so she's a great manager in that regard, but also has no ownership stake in the bar. And that's a bit concerning, just for the fact that if she were to go away, that other piece of your continuity planning just isn't quite there yet. And I was concerned to hear that you missed the meeting with the Swazo Center, where I think a lot of that action is happening. And so I'm worried that if we grant a license, that work will stall out or not continue, because we can't just take back the license. Once you have it, you have it. You know, you are golden. And unless you really mess up, you know, to Commissioner Jacobson's statements, and we don't want to be in that position, because if we have to revoke your license, you cannot have any other license for 3 years after this. And I don't want to put your business in that situation. So my recommendation this month would be that you finish up the management portion of your business planning, the continuity provisions, and then we readdress it. And, you know, we only have 3 licenses right now. We only have 4 for the whole year. And we have a number of other licensees. And so I want, from my perspective, I think you're definitely a contender, but I just need to see that continuity piece for me personally. And I don't know if other commissioners had some comments.
Yes, I just wanted to add, I think, and I was on the call virtually or the meeting virtually last month, so forgive me if I missed part of the conversation, but I think part of the license or Commissioner Jacobson's request or desire to give you the license was based on attending the meeting with the Swazo Center and kind of following through that plan. So it was a little disappointing that that didn't happen. However, I do feel like for several months, there was a lack of communication between us and you as far as what exactly needed to be done and what needed to be fixed. And I take responsibility as a commission for letting that happen, because I know you came to every meeting and wanted to do what you needed to do to get this completed. So, and I know, as you mentioned, that Durango is an important part of the Hispanic community as far as gathering places. And we do have a limited number of bars that are predominantly attended by the Hispanic community. So that's really important to me as well. And I know Commissioner Orton and I have talked about, we would do anything that we can do with, we'd like to go to the bar, to Durango, have a site visit, look around, see what we can do to help work with staff to make sure that everything's on track. But I do agree with the vice chair that perhaps a little bit more legwork and getting us really involved in that process would be the best way to make sure that you stay open, you stay this like important community resource, and that we do a better job of making sure that you are informed of exactly what it is that you need from us to make this successful.
Why did you miss the Swazo meeting?
I'm a general contractor, so I'm up and down all day long. I go to Park City, Logan, all over. So I know what it takes to go to Logan back and forth, but if it's an accident or something else, it got me by hand, and that's what happened. I went to pick up some scaffold from my house that I supposed to move a long time ago, and I got stuck on the traffic and I didn't make it on time. I tried to call them. They didn't answer right away. When I get a hold of them, it was like 12:30. The meeting was at 10 a.m. So that's what happened. I mean, like, I make plans, but my job is not like a little bit different, you know?
Well, Pablo, I mean, you know, there's several of us who really want to see you succeed. But my question is, and I'm not trying to treat you like a child, but it's 10 a.m. and you're supposed to be someplace and you don't call them till 12:30?
No. I tried to call them, but I couldn't get a hold of them. And sometimes, I mean, they got all their phone calls, probably they don't answer like when I call them. So I tried to call them and I couldn't get a hold of them into like 12. And the meeting was at 10. I tried to call them that I wasn't gonna make it, so there was no answer.
And what you did in Logan is your other job, right?
Yeah, I'm a general contractor, so I got contracts in Logan, Park City, all over the city. And I have to go bring materials and pick us on scaffolds or your materials are left
You-
in the jobs and
You
stuff.
see what the problem with these, my fellow commissioners is that you made a commitment and this, we look at this as being pretty important commitment. This is a basic item for going into business. And you didn't make it because you tried to do something else at the same time.
Yeah, but like I say, I mean, I know what it takes to go to Ogden, to go and come back. I make plans. I had a plenty time to come back. And it was a lot of traffic. It was an accident. I got stuck and I didn't make it. Like last day, I went to see a job and I had a meeting at 5:30. I went to see a job. I know I had a plenty time. It was all the way up in the canyon. It was not very good signal. I couldn't find the address. I didn't make it to the meeting either, because I mean, it's not something that it happens, you know, like it's not like I don't want to miss a meeting, but I mean, like, I know what it takes. Sometimes it takes longer. It's accidents or traffic or anything can happen. I mean, like, happens to anybody.
Can I make
mean,
a quick
Commissioner
comment?
Randall had a comment.
So thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that question as well. I think I'm of the mindset too, if it's possible, if we could move forward, I think I don't want to distract from the primary issue, which is the continuity of management, but also if you could also include, last meeting you had mentioned, I think Cassandra, you addressed this slightly, is just your hours of operation being only 2 days, where we have such few bar licenses and we have so many folks that are interested in opening bars as well. Just concerns there as well about that limited hours. That was relatively new to me last commission meeting. And so I appreciate that you addressed the desire to have extended hours, but if you could also include that in your overview that you'll provide for us for the next meeting. And then if possible, if we could move on, I'd rather not have this full conversation. I think all of this can happen with staff and then we can be briefed as commission moving forward.
Agreed, and appreciate you working with Jeff and really addressing these concerns. I know everybody's, caring for your situation and want to move forward in a positive way. So thank you. Okay, let's move on to Verse. And please state your name for the record and give us an overview of your business and your plans to open.
So my name is Michael Repp, and we have suffered a huge construction setback that put us out until September 15th. Can she hand these out real quick? Sorry. There was a non-disclosure with the building that the sewer hub and the lines have been collapsed and remodeled to the building next door. The building has been vacant for 12 years. So we kind of inherited a issue that we have no control over. The civil engineering plans are being turned into the city tomorrow to achieve the wet seal from them. And then Treadstone Building, our general contractors here as well. Once those plans come back from the city as approved, it's an approximate 4 to 5 week build out for us. And we serve such a marginalized and targeted community already as a queer bar that it's really important for us to get in front of you guys and let you know that we're still relevant, we're still here, and that there's only one other fully owned and operated gay bar in Salt Lake City, where in 1999 to 2003, there were 11 queer bars that were throughout the entire city in South Salt Lake. Now there are 2. So this is something that we really want to fight for. This is something that we feel we can serve well. My husband and I were partners in another business that we separated from, and we have a long history in the community. So we just really want to strive to get ours open. And of course, we are going to love working with George and Matt over at Edison House. They're great guys. And I think Salt Lake is ready for a new range of safe space for people. So that's kind of where we are.
Great, and thank you for your comments. And we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thanks.
And I just want to say, I am so sorry. I had a little bit of a moment when you were telling me what happened. That's horrendous. And I
wish you well.
Very expensive and very time consuming, but we'll get
It's
through it.
horrifying.
So,
And
thank you.
I just want to add, I attended the Pride Party, the block party, which was amazing. And I heard you guys raised a ton of money the first day.
We did. We raised almost $20,000 for the Pride Center and we serviced 6,800 people in 2.5 days with Sapa Investments.
Yeah, it was a
So
great,
we're-
it was a great event. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, the coop. Morning, Commissioners. I'm back again. My name is Kim Bouchard and I'm with the Roosters Hospitality Group. I gave you a pretty good overview last month, so I know that time is of the essence. This is my chef and chief of operations, Chef Matthew Lake, and he is handing out our, menu, some pictures so you can see that we're ready to go. The only thing that I would like to highlight is just especially that our community changing demographic, Davis County is on fire, as I said last month, and a big impact on our area is the Sentinel weapon system, the $80 billion project, which has brought a lot of growth to our county. Just to say, we have about 130 seats. There really is nothing like this. We are in the middle of 9 hotels in our conference center, and I think and it's going to have significant economic impact. And I think I will just open it up to you for questions. And Matt has just one last thing to note. This is Matt's 15th restaurant that he's built from ground up between New York City, Washington, DC, and Salt Lake City. And I'm just thrilled to have him on our team. It's just been a godsend, and he's been very involved with this. And he is the manager of construction that can answer any questions that you might have. Great. I did have a question. I was under the impression that we were supposed to get pictures of your establishment before the meeting, and checked with staff yesterday and hadn't got those. So wanted to see if there was any update on the current view of the interior. That's on that one, but.
Yeah, sorry, I think we misunderstood. So we had a website shoot and we were getting ready for stuff, and that's what you see there. So we're really close. The last couple of refrigeration units shipped last Wednesday to be installed, and then we'll be hooking up the stoves to the plumbing and having our final inspections. And
And we have confirmed that with Layton City as far
staff
as that
is-
final
Staff
inspection.
is secured and ready to
Commissioner.
go. So we're not having staffing issues.
Yeah, Jeremy.
The photos were requested. We just never heard back.
Okay. So I also visited on Sunday, and everything was still boarded up. I mean, I didn't peek in, I didn't try to go in because we didn't have the photos yet. By the way, ate at Roosters. It was fantastic. Great Sunday afternoon with the family. But also I couldn't tell that it was ready to open. There was no signage or We didn't anything. ask to go back in behind the construction
The
board.
vestibule.
Well, we asked for pictures, so that's what I was hoping to have.
The vestibule, that white piece that's over, is the doorway. The doors are all there. That's kind of still up for the last minute. When the Paulson construction totally finishes, they'll tear that down kind of as a reveal. It just keeps Roosters. We get a ton of people that want to see.
Sure.
So we just leave that door because it's got a
She just wants
code
to
lock
know, are
on
we
it, and
ready?
can keep it secure, and we don't have, it discourages people from walking in the site.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I was there on Sunday too. It's amazing. I missed you.
Funny.
Yeah, it looked to me like this is probably something that needs to be kicked over a month, but I don't see how you're going to open between now and
No,
next
we
August
are
meeting.
opening August 23rd.
Yeah, we're ready.
We're
to go.
ready.
All the goods installed, equipment. Only thing be final inspections. Staff is secured.
Commissioner Tenner, did you have your hand up?
I do.
You're
I
on
do.
mute.
Thank
Oh,
you.
there you go.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for that answer. I'm actually just curious, and honestly, if this isn't necessarily directly about you, but it's just in me kind of understanding some dynamics. You have an awesome menu at Roosters, obviously going to have an awesome menu at the Coop. Do you have just kind of ballpark, your ratios on food beverage?
For this project
For this establishment?
do you have, it's on our application.
No, I can't remember. I mean, we do want a bar license. So
Of course,
that
Of course.
We get, Roosters is such a family, open place. We get a lot of inquiries about, for business people from the hotels, the conference center, that stuff. And the 21 and over thing, I mean, honestly, I think our ratios, sales ratios, will be really close to the restaurant. It's just having the ability for those business people or the people there for conventions and stuff, and that want a little more of an adult place. If that makes sense. That's really what the Coop bills. I mean, that's the niche that we're trying to fill. Layton, as you know, is pretty underserved in that demographic. And so that's why we've gone for the 21 and over. Just,
right.
We like to say it's not fancy, but it's nice.
Yeah,
And,
no, thank
a
you.
place you might want to go on a Friday, Saturday night when you got a sitter and,
Great.
just
Yeah.
a little different than.
May I add one more comment? I have 15 licenses. I know that you would not give me this if I wasn't opening within 30 days. So I don't say that lightly. And I guess my thing is that you wanted to know, but no, that refrigeration gets here, this week. And so then that doesn't look like it. But like I said,
Yeah, the walk-ins here, the under counter, those little Continental units are what shipped on.
Ms.
last
Bouchard, going back to my question, just to wrap up that question before we move on to that. I just thank you. I appreciate getting a little bit of clarification on those ratios. It's actually something that we're kind of dealing with as we have really, really scarce licenses, and we're understanding that, businesses have this kind of niche that they're looking to fill and have a kind of an innovative business plan. And sometimes we kind of run into this question around, are we a restaurant? Are we a bar? And I appreciate your comments, and they help me understand really what you're trying to do. And so thank you for that.
And I'm sorry, what day did you say was your projected opening date?
Well, staff is on board already, but we're shooting for it to be fully open either by the 23rd or the Friday, the 25th. So it's really about staff training and, having all the time to make sure all our, I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
if you came up, you probably noticed that the other side was closed off. So that's being done. That's going to be transferred over, like the restaurant side.
Because Roosters is also being renovated. So which is awesome. Fresh up on the dining room and,
So could I ask, with the pictures, this is an actual image, not a rendering?
that's an actual image we took Sunday night. Sunday night.
And say refrigeration doesn't show up.
It's
and-
only, so we ordered, they're the under bar units with the 2 doors, like for your beverage stuff. If worst case scenario, they shipped last Wednesday. If for some reason, I expect they could either be here today or tomorrow, according to tracking. If for some reason they weren't, I could go to Resco and buy 2 of the same units. It's just, we worked with a kitchen supplier and designer, and
our
buy the
tap
stuff
system has
directly.
arrived. That doesn't
Yeah.
show the tap system that's installed this week.
Yeah, and our beer tap system is here. It's arrived. Glass Tender installs that this week on Wednesday, so tomorrow. So yeah, I feel fully confident that we'll be open. And also, if something catastrophic did happen as far as the kitchen went, which again, all our stuff's at here, and a lot of it's here in storage, just those refrigeration pieces. We could satisfy the food requirement with our fully functioning kitchen from Roosters. It's only 100 feet away. So we're in really great shape. We wouldn't tell you that we were going to pull this off if we didn't,
Well, I mean,
ready to open.
sure. So, for my fellow commissioners, I mean, my position is that we are in such a situation with scarcity of bar licenses that any reason to not be certain about granting a license, we have to take seriously. And the fact that you weren't responsive to staff is enough for me to push this off a month, unfortunately. And that's our position because we need the extra verification on a number of levels that you're ready to open. I believe you. I believe your experience. And, my recommendation is just that you be super responsive with staff. So that's going to be my position. And I'd ask for comments. from
Commissioner
other
Tui, I agree with
commissioners.
you. I think we've been burned, unfortunately, as you know, in the past. And August 23 or 25 is pretty close to August 30th. So if everything is really truly ready to go and staff has done an inspection and says it's ready to go, that's a different story than what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with a lack of information.
Thank you for being here. And I'm sorry that we're in this position, but we are. So, and for our proposed future openings, I'll ask if there are any updates from the applicants. If there's any updates you'd like to provide the commission, please feel free to address. And please state your.
My name is Charlie Carden. I'm one of the co-founders of Edison House here with my brother, George. I don't have a long update. Just want to let you know we are still on track for a late September open. We have hired a lot of people at this point. So a lot of people for us. We have 9 people on staff now, which is pretty exciting and just moving, pretty quickly forward. We had a great meeting with Mike and brought some of the other staff to the building as well. So that's it.
Great, thank you. And we did receive the letter from the Jazz, which will be entered into the record for the commission meeting as well. Okay, so moving on in our agenda, we'll now look at full service restaurant applications. Craig?
First, I think we ought to deal with the bar licenses, and I would make a motion that we hold the bar licenses until the August meeting.
Oh, sure. Commissioner, I was just moving on in the agenda and not having a motion to that effect. Do you feel we need a motion?
I think it would be fair to the community that we did it that way, so that it's quite clear what our actions have been.
That we're making a motion to not grant any bar licenses?
Correct.
And you're making that motion?
I'm making that motion.
Okay,
I would second it.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Craig, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. This month, we have 6 applications for a full-service restaurant. All applications are conditional, otherwise complete, and meet statutory requirements.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion for approving these full-service restaurants. Thank you, Commissioner Orton. A second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to item D, limited service restaurant applicants. Bonnie?
Good morning, Commissioners. We have 11 applications for this month for limited restaurant. All are conditional except for Asahi Sushi number 2. All applicants meet statutory requirements. And do you have any questions for me?
Vice Chair, I have a question, and that is, it would be helpful, like the first full service and also these, if beside the conditional, you put the projected opening date. Are we looking at a year down the road or 6 months down the road or next month?
On the spreadsheet that's provided to you all, for all of them, they do have the opening or projected opening.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the limited service?
So move.
In a second. I'll give that one to Commissioner Orton because I can hear better over here. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, item E, on-premise beer rec applicants. Dan.
Good morning, Commissioners. So as a reminder, we have two applications. We have Soundwell, and we have Soldier Hollow. So to cover some ground with Soundwell, as a reminder, Soundwell is a recreational application that was originally received in March of this year, but has been stricken due to construction issues as well as ongoing concerns by staff. At the subcommittee meeting, commissioners were provided with a detailed summary of concerns from staff, which focus on licensing operating as a tavern or operating as a beer recreational license. The specific concerns were the visible bar with beer taps positioned at the back of the entertainment venue, as well as the lack of culinary facilities as it doesn't offer full meals. Per statute 32B-6-703, statute requires the commission to determine if an on-premise beer retailer licensee qualifies as a beer licensee or as a tavern. With that said, the application is complete. However, it is conditional as a business license is needed. It does meet statutory requirements. The applicant is on the phone and is available to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, we have many questions. There's been a lot of discussion amongst commissioners and staff. And thank you, to DABS staff for being willing and available to answer so many questions that we've had. Is someone from Soundwell on the meeting online?
Yes, my name is Brian Borson. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. So I'll go ahead and get started here. One of the concerns that I think I expressed to you during the last meeting was that around the temporary event permits, but would also apply here to a beer recreational application is, how are you protecting minors from having access to alcohol at your facility that is applying for the beer rec?
Gotcha. Well, there is, for the temporary beer permits that we've been using over the last little bit, we have been doing an ID station with a heavy duty bike rack barricade station that has a one point of entrance with security there, checking IDs and making sure that people are not entering that area that are under 21 in regards specifically to the temporary beer permits. And I'm in speaking with Rob and Jeremy, who's been very helpful in kind of helping us try to navigate this transition for us. We have found that there's a few different, the original option that we had which was serving from the counter, might not be an option at this particular point in time. And I was on the phone with them on Friday trying to understand and really come up with a better solution that works and makes everybody comfortable in order for us to stay in compliance and safely serve the 21 plus community.
So you think that further changes might be made to your structure before you're ready for this, this type of permit?
Under the original discussion that I had when we first went through this, and as you guys know, I've had construction delays that have kind of halted or slowed down our culinary space. And so this has been striked every month so far. And so we, so under the original discussion, we were planning on serving from that counter space. It wasn't really until I guess late last week that I found out that might be unacceptable for this particular permit or license, sorry, for the on-premise beer recreational license. And so I had requested with Jeremy and Rob to potentially look at a few different options so everyone can be comfortable with the way that we're serving in that process. the suggestion was to move it to a new location, move the beer sales portion of this to a new location that does not have the infrastructure that, which is the coolers and the hand washing stations and things like that. We do not have any tap beer on our premise. And so it would just be the canned product that we would have to look at working through. But I simply needed to kind of work through the details of that as it was brought to my attention later in the week last week and with the holiday weekend. And it's been, I've had to try to look at a different option.
Okay, I'll open it up to my other commissioners after I have one more question. I am still very confused about the difference between your bar license premise and the beer rec premise. What facilities are shared and what are not? I mean, are people going between the two? Are you using shared culinary facilities, bathroom facilities? You mentioned hand washing stations. How is that all working together or separate?
For everything that is guest facing, it is separate. The discussion of allowing a shared culinary facility is the only thing that would be shared when that's finished. But for the most, but they don't cross back and forth. They have two separate entrances off of the street entrance, which are essentially there's a separate business front in between the two entrances.
For the bar and the beer rec premise.
That's correct, yes.
So so customers aren't using any shared facilities other than just your back end culinary facilities.
That's correct. That's what we've been trying to work for, yes.
You're trying to work towards it? Or it's happening? I'm sorry.
That was unclear. That is the plan. The only reason why I put some hesitation in there is because of the potential changes that we had discussed just this last Friday in regards to the on-premise beer rec license. And so, but that's been our plan from the beginning.
Okay. I'll open it up to other commissioners.
I guess a couple of questions. First of all, is your bar license on the same floor as the proposed rec beer facility?
For the most part, yes. There's a few steps up, but yes, it is on the same floor.
And to enter the facility, do the people who are going to use the bar and the people who are going to use the beer rec facility enter from the same street entrance?
No, they would enter from two different entrances, and there's actually a deli cafe that's in between them. So they're about 60 feet apart.
So if I am going to go to the bar, I am not going to come in any kind of visual contact with beer rec, and vice versa. If I'm going to the beer rec, I'm going to enter from the street through a separate door to go to the beer rec.
That's correct.
Yeah. Explain to me then what these barricades are that I see in the photos, these police barricades.
Absolutely, no problem. Yep. So when we have been pulling the temporary beer permits, we have been using those to create a garden that separates the 21 plus from the under 21 in that area. And what I had sent over to staff, they had asked for something, and I said, well, are there a handful of other options that we can look at to make this work in a specific manner that everyone is comfortable with? And so I had sent those pictures as well.
So once I've come, let's say I've come to dance and and assuming I am 17 years or 18 years old, how are you going to basically segregate me from those people who want to go up to the window and get a beer?
Well, I would be happy to continue to use a barricade or an ID personnel person or anything that is recommended. I will do essentially whatever is the right and correct way. I prefer to use a barricade with an ID person to make that space, as I feel much more comfortable with that. It's much more controlled, and that would be the best way for us to do it from
And
a logistics standpoint.
suppose that I'm over 21, I buy a beer from you, and then I go take that out to the dance floor. What are your procedures or management policies as to how you're going to control me passing that on to my friend who is 17?
So we would strongly suggest people keep it in the bike rack or barricaded area. And if we're allowed to, by the license, we would make that mandatory. If we're not allowed to by the license, then we would increase security and just have them placed and watching for those items as we do in outdoor events and other areas like that.
I guess, can we hear from staff on their thoughts on where it is right now? Just. Is that been noticed? Okay. Sorry, Chair.
Here, maybe I'll interject. There's been a lot of back and forth. I know there are differing views on this as we've heard. I think we still need to dig into the event permits from Soundwell a little bit, but based on this conversation, I don't think I'm there in terms of recommending a beer recreational license for this licensee, because it sounds like there's still lingering questions or new questions maybe about the structure itself and how beer is served and separated from minors. And I think strongly suggesting that we don't cross a barrier into a dark, crowded facility with minors is quite enough for me. And we're also looking at setting a dangerous precedent with other beer rec facilities that also operate as concert venues, where we need to be very consistent across the board in how we're interpreting and applying, I think, these provisions. And I'm not quite there yet personally in terms of being comfortable with granting this particular beer rec license. I think I can get there, but I think there just needs to be a little more work done to get it in a good place. And then I know Commissioner Orton had some questions about how this could affect event permits as well, because we've been dealing with a number of those.
Yeah, I have myriad concerns. I'm going to try to focus on a couple of the biggest ones for me. But one of my greatest concerns, and there are several, one of my greatest concerns is that I am exceedingly uncomfortable with granting a temporary beer license for 12 different events under a single temporary beer license. Just calling something a series doesn't make it all one event. And so to me, this idea of using a temporary permit to try to shore up the fact that you don't have a suitable situation for your, for a regular beer rec license is problematic for me. I'm happy to hear from you, but I will tell you, I for one am not comfortable granting further temporary event licenses, especially when it is for an entire month's worth of events. We are way up close to the 24 that is I think the maximum of, it's 24. And I'm not willing to allow any applicant to put 12 different events under one temporary license just to try to skirt the statutory requirements. So with that said, that's just my first issue, but it's probably the biggest one. And I just wanted to put on the record that this isn't appropriate. This isn't an appropriate use, especially when it is a commercial venture versus a community venture. In my opinion, this temporary event license should be for applicants who have a community interest, not a commercial interest. I'll let you respond.
No, I appreciate the concern there. When I went down this path, I did not intend on procuring as many permits as I have. I simply continued on as things were getting delayed, and it just wasn't my intention to kind of fall into this operational kind of hole where it appears that I am trying to skirt the language of the law or anything like that. I've operated within the confines of the laws for almost 14 years as a licensee holder, and I take that stuff very seriously. And so as you know, it was not until just this last little bit that something was brought to my attention that there was an issue with how that was being done, and so I'm very much on board to operate the beer recreational license to the truest extent of how it is written on there. I take the IDing. I'm very serious when it comes down to how our team handles IDs, 21 plus, over serving, everything that is there that we look at on a weekly, monthly basis with all the places that we operate. So I'm happy to really work through the situations and really make more and make the space more appropriate in everybody's eyes, and also I would love for everyone to be comfortable with it, and I guess I'm working towards a solution on the beer recreational side, and I think that I can come to that agreement with staff and then present something that is acceptable and comfortable for the commission here in the next few weeks. And so given the new information, I think I can adjust and adapt, and I'd be really happy to. And I look forward to not pulling permits on a regular basis, because it is very, very time consuming, and it is also just very stressful from my standpoint as well. So I would much rather have a retail license that I can operate with and have some clarity there as well.
Well, to that end, I just want to explain that my primary concern is that you don't seem to be doing what we need for you to do in order for us to feel comfortable that minors will not have easy access reaching an arm around or even just, passing a beer back and forth between people. We aren't comfortable with that. And using a temporary beer permit, I'm also not comfortable using a temporary beer permit to further facilitate a situation where we aren't comfortable. We aren't comfortable that minors don't have access. So I want to see if you could perhaps work with staff and deal with our concerns about minors having easy access to alcohol. That's really, it's really the temporary, it's really the beer rec situation that is the problem. And the temporary beer permit is just kind of being used to kind of skirt around it. Let's get together and make things on the beer rec side amenable to our concerns that we don't want minors to have easy access to alcohol. The end.
Any comments? Go ahead.
I am 100%. I know that I might sound like a broken record, but I really am on board with everything that you're saying there. I would be, if I'm allowed to use that police barricade and completely block that off, and you aren't able to access that area at all, I'm 100% on board to do that. And because I have the existing infrastructure and I can make those things immediately happen today. If I have to rework and rebuild how that lays out in the space, then I need a little bit of time to make those changes so I can get them to you guys so you can be very comfortable with what is happening in order to show that we're doing safe service. So
Commissioner Tui.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I don't want to draw this out any longer than it needs to go out, but just to really reiterate what Commissioner Orton said and some of my other colleagues, it's really important to me on this one that we are making sure this is a safe space where minors do not have access to alcohol in any way. This is a little bit different than some of the other beer recs, right? These spaces are loud, they're dark. So it's really important that we go the extra mile, and it sounds like the owner is. So I truly appreciate you. For me, and this is something where staff can weigh in and help you. For me, I'll be honest with you, I'd like to see something more than just the police barricade. But I'd have to really lean on staff to figure out what the appropriate solution is there. But for me to be comfortable, there has to be a clear delineation. And I completely appreciate, thank you so much for your willingness to work on this. And it's clear to me that this is important to you too. So thank you.
And
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we table this to the August meeting to allow staff and commissioners to obtain further information.
Is there a second? Any discussion? And I know that staff wanted to comment on this matter before we move on.
Thank you. Mr. Borison, this is Jeremy, just quickly to note this. The important thing that I think the commissioners are asking for is the appearance. So there are two things that we have to have the commission weigh in on moving into August now, is the appearance of the structure. Are you serving beer? Is it a bar? Which we've spoken about at length. Determining the counter space, if it's a bar space, or are you serving more than what's going to be provided as an appearance of a bar? And number two is determining when you intend to get your construction in order. It's, as I mentioned to you in a mail and on a phone conversation, this is going on quite long enough. And so we've got to sort this out, and staff's happy to partner with you to do this, but you have to meet us halfway.
I'd like to quickly, this Tiffany Clayson, Executive Director, follow up on Jeremy's comments. Two things. I just want to confirm, maybe with a nod from staff and or a comment and recognition from you, Mr. Borison. the commission did grant you an extended closure on your bar license until the August meeting. Is that correct? Okay, Jeremy is nodding
correct,
yes,
yeah.
and Dan is nodding yes. So between now and that next meeting it's really go time in terms of, it sounds like, working with staff and trying to execute these final things that would need to be done. Because again, has been referenced, that if that bar license is not in use, there are many people that would love to be using that bar license. And we've heard from several of them today. The second thing that I've talked about with some of the commissioners that I just would like to kind of put out there, it might be good to make a quick field trip between now and the next meeting. If it would be helpful for some of you to actually see the premise. I know sometimes that's really helpful, in addition to looking at pictures, but to be actually able to visit a premise and have these conversations sort of real time, looking at the space. I will make myself available for that opportunity. If anyone would like to join us, we'll have to be careful not to quorum, et cetera. But that is something that I would just like to make available to any commissioner that would be interested.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Now let's vote on the motion to move forward in the agenda.
I'm sorry, can I just add one thing? And I'm sorry, I don't want to drag it out, and I would love to know how this is kind of different. I know concert venues are different, but I've been to several concerts where there's underage people by the bar and then they just walk away and go sit at their seats and have access to drink, or are sitting next to somebody who's drinking. So, yeah, I just want some information on that as well.
Does staff maybe want to? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'd be happy to map that out as clearly as I can and make adjustments where the comments come back in.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of moving on in the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, item 2, Soldier Hollow.
So number 2 is Soldier Hollow. The application is complete and it meets all the statutory requirements.
Any comments or concerns from commissioners? Can I get a motion to approve? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, on-premise tavern applicant. It looks like that one is stricken. Let's move on to item G, package agency applicant. And Jeff, you've got this one.
Thank you, commissioners. Good afternoon. We have Scion Cider. Application is complete and they meet all statutory requirements. Do you have any questions?
Nope. Can I get a motion for approval?
If I may, Jeff, you had the matrix, which we ask all the other package agencies prior to granting permits. Were they asked those same identical questions?
They are not specifically under a type 5 because they're associated with a manufacturing license. And the other ones are tied to compensatory, where they're compensated from us, where the type 5s are not.
Thank you.
Can I get a second for the motion? Second. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, item 16, temporary beer permit. We're talking again about Soundwell, so I'll turn this one over to Director Clayson for discussion.
So as we all know, but just quick primer, we have 2 different types of event permits available. There is a temporary beer, there are single event permits. We typically refer to them as TBs and SEs. Typically, when an entity, it could be a licensee, it could be a civic organization, would like to hold an event and sell alcohol, they determined which type of permit best suits their operations, their needs, et cetera. They then make that application. We then have staff review those applications. They do an incredible job at sort of vetting them, making sure that all the control measures have been met, the statutory requirements have been met. And then the sort of next course of action is the executive director then has the responsibility to approve or preliminarily approve or deny those. It is very rare that I will preliminarily deny one, because most of the time people, right, are making these applications in a way where they're solid, right? And they meet all the statutory requirements. Once I approve or deny, preliminarily approve or deny an application, it then goes to the compliance subcommittee per statute for the commissioners to have 3 business days to consider my decision and either agree with it, in which case it kind of moves forward down the rest of the statutory timeline, or if there's a disagreement, maybe they think I shouldn't have denied it, or they think I shouldn't have approved it. They can request a meeting. So we obviously just talked ad nauseum about Soundwell, Beer Rec. Soundwell has made commitments, and you can get on their website and see where they have programming for the month of August. They even have programming for the month of September, by which they're seeking permits to be able to serve alcoholic beverages at those events. Like as Commissioner Orton mentioned, her discomfort with a temporary beer application that sort of incorporated many events under one application. There is precedence for that where there are, festivals or music series by which organizations or entities do make those types of applications, and it's okay to do that, and we grant those. Obviously, given the course of the discussion we just had, there's concern that that is maybe not being used in the way it's intended to. Obviously, I do think Mr. Borson has, to be fair, been transparent in his operational issues and been really transparent about that from that perspective. I appreciate the concerns that the commissioners have had, and I think it's really important anytime that I'm approving or thinking to approve, preliminarily approve a permit application, that anytime a commissioner has concerns about the safety of an event or the appropriateness on continued applications for said permits, that you all feel comfortable flagging those concerns. That's what the process is for. And we obviously all take our public safety responsibilities really seriously. That said, we have the issue before us with an application, a temporary beer application that does fold several music events under the one application. It does meet the statutory requirements, I believe, in all other ways, other than sort of some of the things that we've just discussed, which is what is the intent, what is the desire for the applicant, the licensee to correct these things that need to be corrected and remedied, because it sounds to me like the commission is not content to support me continue to do additional preliminary approvals. So I guess because we're entangled in these decisions, happily so, I think it's really important that we have this as an agenda item today, because it does me no good to preliminarily approve this next application if you all are not comfortable with that. And I will say, I believe the first event, if staff could confirm or deny, for that application is August 2nd. So meaning really a decision would need to be made today if you all are comfortable with me preliminarily approving the temporary beer permit, which covers the August music series. Mr. Borson, sorry, I was going to say Boswell. Borson, could you confirm what events are taking place in said August music series? And I do want to note that we do have applicants that do make these applications for music series, both that are licensees, not just civic organizations. But again, won't belabor, but there is definitely some concern, and I think it's valid, about the commercial nature or of the intent there. But could you confirm what those are? Is Aaron Carter, the Aaron Carter concert, part of that? That one's a single event. Okay, maybe he left. I don't know if he's still on or not. Mr. Borson? Okay, well, just I guess for additional comment, I would say.
Hi, sorry, can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, it kicked me off and muted me. Aaron Carter is not part of the the August series.
Okay, and it sounds like that's actually a single event permit application.
Correct.
Okay. Can you remind us how many events fall under that music series application, temporary beer for August?
It would be probably about 12, I think.
Okay, and I did notice on your website, it appeared to be some of those events that said 21 and older. So in terms of an issue of minors being present, safety, et cetera, even though a temporary beer permit, depending on requested waiver for a beer garden, et cetera, do you plan to have minors at those events or not?
There are some that are listed as all ages. On those all ages shows, we do have a beer garden. On the 21 and plus shows, we do not.
Got it. I guess for the record and for the benefit of the commissioners and their background and knowledge, we do have other license types that do pull temporary beer and single event permits for concerts. So when they're not necessarily tied to, like, let's say an art festival or a community fair, something like that. And that has been done. And my hope would be to continue to do that, because there are instances when that is appropriate and needs to be done. And I think the will in general is would be for that practice to continue. Of course, knowing that those are sort of rare exceptions to the business's overall separate sort of business model, business concept, and operation. So I guess what I'm just asking from the commission related to the temporary beer permit before me, it has been vetted, statutory requirements are met from control measure perspective, et cetera. We have granted such permits before. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion or movement towards the desire for me to preliminarily approve that or not?
I've got a question. These special event permits are supposed to be submitted 30 days in advance. Is that right?
Yes, both are temporary beer and single event, and that's in statute. It's recommended 30 days in advance.
Were these submitted 30 days in advance?
I don't believe they were. We had conversation with our staff. I don't have that information in front of me, but it did miss the 30-day mark.
Why?
Mr. Borson?
There was a fire. Our CO2 tank, and this is all from the construction, our CO2 tank in our basement required a hazmat permit, which has been applied for, and a carbon monoxide detector. And so those they basically put a halt on it until they got those things approved, which have been all taken care of, but fire held it up in the city for, I think the local consent was signed on June 6th, and they held it up for 45 days.
So this isn't, my business necessarily, but I would understand that, booking like a big concert would be something that you plan for, months in advance. So it seems to me that we should have much more notice in terms of these requests for permits coming before Director Clayson for her approval. And so you're putting us in a very untenable position where you're being asked for us to approve this permit, or else, you might have these entertainers, bail on you because you're not fulfilling your end of the contract. And I certainly don't want to put you in a position, but you're sort of forcing our hand to say, give me a permit, or I'm going to have these people cancel. And you're not saying that, but I'm assuming that. Is that kind of the situation that you found yourself in? If you don't get these permits?
Just to be clear, by no means am I
Sure, I said that,
anybody
not
to
you.
give me a permit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, and given just the amount of kind of vertical or obstacles and hurdles through all of this, I've just, if it falls within the statute, I believe if it has, like, I have to turn it in within 9 days of the event at minimum. It's been requested to go up to 30. I strive, most of my permits are in through the end of September. And so they're very, like, they're in the proper time. A few of them have been hung up through something or another, and that is out of my control, that where I didn't see coming or something. And I definitely do not expect somebody to step and make us a permit if it falls inside the 30 days and it gets denied. I understand that, and I'm okay with that. But if I have an opportunity to put it in, that's what I'm doing. And I am definitely not forcing anybody to give me anything. I'm just requesting the opportunity, essentially.
Sure. I guess my statement, and that was my own assumptions. I wasn't trying to put that on you, but I would assume that you have a contract with these entertainers that require you to serve beer. Is that right?
Yeah, we have our contracts with the promotional companies. I mean, we've got with all the different levels in there. And so, but in the entertainment industry, we understand that sometimes there's a hiccup and sometimes we have to address something. And so that's our burden to bear, and we understand that. So.
Okay, thank you.
That wasn't the question. The question is, do you have in your contracts with these performers a requirement that your premises will be serving alcohol?
There is not a specific requirement in there that's line itemed.
So you could hold these events, and not serve alcohol, correct?
There is the possibility to do that. I would assume that over time that would disappear, as it is an important part of the music experience.
And can you tell us how many different entity names Soundwell has applied for these temporary permits under? Because I've seen 2, I think, or maybe 3.
So there is 2.
Okay. And how many different events have you gotten permits for so far without August under each of those entities?
I don't have that exact number in front of me. One of the entities that I have operates does events all over the city, and as well as Soundwell, and Soundwell has also pulled the majority of those permits for the events at Soundwell.
So any other comments or questions from commissioners? I think the last comment I'll make is, I think Director Clayson's looking for some direction on what to do with this. I almost said licensee, but you're not a licensee, but you are. And my comment is about your bar license. This is something we do have jurisdiction over, and it looks like we need to approve your extended closure starting next month. That will have to come before the commission. And so I think a lot of these issues that we're dealing with the temporary beer permits, and the request for the beer rec, and this is all sort of intertwined into the closure of your bar and the ongoing construction. And so like Jeremy mentioned with the last item, I would like to see a lot more progress made towards understanding what the real timeline is, and share Commissioner Orton's sentiment that we can't keep granting you batch permits because you're basically getting around the rules, but you are within the statutory guidance for you being able to do so. And so I think my direction, my preference personally for now would be that Director Clayson do grant your temporary beer permit for this event and upcoming batch, but that we need to see a lot more progress and have more assurity about what your business model is going to look like going forward. And if it includes more temporary beer permits to operate concerts, I think we're going to have to seriously reconsider approving those or asking Director Clayson to not approve them. And I'd ask for comments from other commissioners on that.
I'm looking to see if we can come up with suitable compromise. I understand the entertainment business problems. Look, we have a problem with the premises, as we previously discussed. I also have a problem with how this has all been done. But I don't want to affect the public in a negative manner if possible. So my proposal would be that we allow the director to grant the beer permits only to those events where they will serve to 21 and only admit 21 and older, so that we don't run while we're dealing with the premises issue. And that would, I think, be a compromise. And that's exactly what it is. I don't feel good about it, but on the other hand, I'm looking out for the public a little bit and their expectations. And I think our applicant understands that we are going to be looking at this very diligently during the next month.
And could I ask, do you have applications in for September also?
That's correct, yes.
How many events? And this is for a temporary permit in September for how many events?
It would probably be, I don't have the application in front of me at the current moment, but it would be probably 12 events, 10 or so. And those are outside of the 30 days. I think I got them in 45 days in front.
I will say for the record, I am in line with Commissioner Jacobson's comments about the 21 and over. I'm good with that, but I would like to hear from Director Clayson.
Sure. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from the commission and Mr. Bornson, will translate for you in case it's not coming through, is that it sounds like there is an appetite for us to, if statutory requirements are indeed met, to approve these August events under this permit. But indeed, looking towards the August commission meeting, there needs to be a lot of work done to sort of get things in order from your perspective, with having everything ironed out, actual construction work done, because it sounds to me like there's not an appetite to move forward with any September events.
And mine is only for August. I hope that's clear. Till the next commission meeting.
And I would go along with the 21 and over events. I am just not okay with the setup for the ones including minors.
We didn't have a second, though. I haven't had a second to my motion yet.
Oh, I'm second.
Oh.
Any discussion to the motion? I have a comment. Would you clarify your motion, please? Sorry.
My motion would be to allow the director at her discretion to grant the applications that include the events during the month of August up till the next commission meeting, provided that those approved must have a caveat that only are available to 21 and over.
So my comment is that I think even though we asked questions and expressed concern about in the last commission meeting, generally about the separation for where drinking was happening and where it wasn't, I felt satisfied that even in a temporary situation that they're in while they're under construction, that those police barricades that they've been using in the pictures were providing an alcohol garden. And in some cases, we've approved, in many cases, special event permits for temporary beer permits where the alcohol garden is like a piece of ribbon, like it is a perceived barrier. And so my concern is that this is like kind of like August is right around the corner, and for their events to have to change them to 21 and older for these beer permits is maybe not the way we've applied existing practice to other licensees. And so I'll be voting against that motion, but share the sentiment that going forward in September, that that's what they need to plan to do. So that's where I'm coming from.
I would just add that my concern goes back to the concern you raised about the fact that they aren't doing the work they need to do. They are using we're basically enabling them not to do the construction work and the planning that they need to do.
Yeah, we said we would not be approving this month their plan because they didn't have a satisfactory plan to deal with 21 and under. And that's why I put that caveat in there for the 1 month until we get this whole thing squared away. Including what staff is going to be looking at in terms of their barricades and whatnot. I think if you do that, then basically what we're doing is we're undermining this whole discussion we've had for this last hour about what needs to be done to these premises. And that's the reason I put this caveat in there so that for the 1 month, we have some control. Yeah, maybe stronger than what other people actually practice. But on the other hand, if we don't do that, then what are we going to do at our August meeting?
They've had a significant period of time to do what they needed to do in order to make us comfortable giving them a beer rec license. And so I just want to make sure that they understand that they have to hold up their end of the bargain. We've been giving them extraordinary numbers of temporary permits. And at some point, it becomes a little bit difficult to justify.
Any more discussion to the motion? Commissioner Tenner, if you have a comment, I'd like to make sure you're able to speak as well.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. I didn't necessarily have a comment prepared, but I'm kind of torn on this. I'll be honest with you. I do really have a concern about minor access to alcohol as it's currently set up. But as you've pointed out, Commissioner Tui, I mean, this has been kind of satisfactory in other places, and it's been satisfactory as the temporary events have been being approved. And so for that reason, I'm on the fence on this, but the bottom line for me truly is we've got to get, as my colleagues have pointed out, we've just got to get this sorted out for August, especially with that license that's an extended closure. We have such scarcity of licenses, and so we need to make sure that that's operational as soon as possible. And then also we need to get to a point where this beer rec premises is as safe as possible. Thanks, Commissioner, for allowing me that.
Agreed. Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. No. It's just me. Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. And so Director Clayson, do you feel like you have what you need to move forward?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate your support and your help.
Okay, moving on to item 17, back to Tiffany and to Cade for our operations update.
I'm going to pass it over to Cade.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I know that I'm the last person that gets to say the last word. Yeah, that's right. I'll be brief though. Just wanted to let everyone know quickly the stores that we have in motion that are going to be coming online over the next couple of years. And so I'll just kind of briefly go over those in just the next couple of minutes. One, East Sandy, that's a store that'll be placed up in East Sandy, is going out for bid for the general construction company. We're very excited about that. We see that happening over the next month. So that'll be headed that direction. The Foothill store, the developer is going to start prep soon on the third quarter. Downtown, the project is involved with Layton Construction and is still moving forward. Sugar House, this is waiting on the developer to finalize the site plans and permitting. And then, of course, the last two our St. George Market area, which we're in the process of acquiring land, and the Park City Market area, where we're in the process of acquiring land. So those are some just brief updates, and I'll leave it there for today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the public today? No one wants to extend this party even further? Commissioners, any other comment? Oh, sorry. Was there a comment online?
Yes, I'm on the phone and I have a public comment. Yeah.
Sure. Please state your name for the record.
Yep. My name is Matthew Ostrander. I'm the owner of Atlantic Craft Beverages. We're a small distributor supplying the DABS. I am referencing a comment from almost 3 hours ago, so I'll try to keep this brief. This comment's in reference, but go ahead.
I was just saying thank you and thanks for being here. Keep going.
This comment's in reference to agenda item 6, the Utah State Auditor's report as it relates to case handling fees. I appreciate the need for periodic increases to case handling fees, and I want to thank the department for their stance of increasing the handling fees incrementally so as not to hit everyone with one massive increase. That current case handling fee is $1.35. However, that fee is currently being added prior to the applicable markup. So in reality, every product that's marked up by 88% is currently seeing a $2.54 handling fee. My concern is that if the correct handling fee is calculated to be $4 and no changes are made to how retail price is calculated, that $4 handling fee will effectively become $7.52. I guess I'm asking for either the calculation for retail pricing to be changed to add the handling fee after the markup, or the determination of the handling fee take into account the effect of the markup added to it. In reality, I'm just asking for transparency in how the case handling fee is applied to the final retail price.
Thank you for that comment. That's interesting. I see staff taking notes and wonder if there's a response to that.
No, the calculation that is being referred to is correct. That's been the standard business practice that we've been using for a very long time, that is set in statute. So, but it's something to consider and something to really take note on as we address these issues.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else online? Okay. With that, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.